Okay, hello you guys. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Glory. If you're a returning subscriber, my name is still Glory. Alright, so we're just going to jump right into what we have for today. And as you can tell by the title, it's basically talking about the difference between nursing here in Canada and nursing back home. Because if you don't know, I was actually studying, I got to do like 2 years of nursing, the registered nursing program, whilst I was still back in Nigeria. Whilst I was still in Nigeria, I don't know why I keep saying back in Nigeria, like it just makes it seem like Nigeria is backwards. Okay, so whilst I was still in Nigeria, I did about 2 years of nursing before moving here. And so, studying nursing here, I've come to realize that there's actually quite a difference in the methods and the way nurses are groomed over here compared to the way they are groomed in Nigeria. So the first thing I found very interesting is the aspect of self-reflection. The nursing practice over here, I realized, is heavily, induced with the call to self-reflection. They always want to make sure that you're reflecting on your practice. When you go to clinicals, when you're doing like your lab practice and things like that, they always want to make sure that you're reflecting on your practice. And I think it's really beautiful because naturally I'm someone who likes to be very introspective about my thoughts, about my behaviors, about my actions, about my words, about I just like to think about how my words come across to other people. I like to think about, why did I do this, why did I act like this. Basically just reflect. I like to reflect, I like to probe myself, right? And so when I realized that, oh, okay, this is also something that is really valued in nursing, over here in Canada. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I found it really interesting because back home, it wasn't really, the practice wasn't really concerned about you as a nurse. It was majorly, it's an extreme. It was majorly based on the patients. Like you really, it's like 70% the patient and 30% you. If you have to die to keep your patient alive, you die and keep your patient alive, right? So it was majorly like concerning the patient and doing everything you can to even if you're getting burnt out as a nurse, even if it's not about you, it's about the patient and your work, right? But here it's quite different. They really care about you as a person, you as a nurse. And so they really always just want you to reflect on, when you do certain things. Let's say you go to the hospital, like on a daily basis, when you get back from your work, that self-reflection aspect and that self-reflection piece is really important because you want to be reflecting on, okay, if something happened at work or a client crossed your boundaries, or like something happened at work, like let's say there was an outbreak of violence, or let's say there was conflict, like, and you didn't handle that well, or you think that, okay, you could have done something better. They want you to always like have that continuous self-reflection and think about, like, okay, how could I have done this better? What conflict strategies could I have applied, and could I have applied better? So things like that. You're just always wanting you to constantly reflect. And it's not even just like they would make you reflect. You would write reflections, right? So I found like that this is really interesting. And I think obviously I don't think anybody would not like that. I think it's really important. I think anybody would like to be in a profession where you're being cared about, not just the work. It's not just the work that they care about, they also care about you as the person doing the work, producing the work, right? Another thing I found interesting is also the fact that the thing is that for me, studying nursing, I realized, has come to open my eyes to some of the personal work that I need to do on myself as well. So I think with nursing, and as with other careers as well, but I would just say nursing because that's obviously where I'm situated in. You can't have a healthy career, let me put it that way, because you can be successful and do whatever you like, but you can't have like a healthy, successful nursing career without learning to put boundaries, without learning to have professional boundaries, personal boundaries and professional boundaries. But professional boundaries, obviously, it's when you have personal boundaries that you find it easier to be able to make and keep professional boundaries. So that's really important. I found, I'm coming to learn that, I can't be successful as a nurse if I don't know how to keep like professional boundaries, if I don't know how to, always have my professional boundaries in place, because clients will try to, obviously cross the line sometimes, things like that. And you're dealing with people, like you're meeting a lot of people. Imagine like you're working in the emergency ward or something. You're going to meet a lot of people who are really agitated. You have to know how to, you have to know how to stand your ground during that time. So imagine you're someone who struggles with boundaries, and that's not really a good place for you. That's not going to be a good place for you to work, because people would always be wanting to push those boundaries, especially in the units such as the emergency ward or like the emergency units. If you're someone who's looking at working there, you have to be really good with making, setting, and keeping and maintaining professional boundaries. And you can't do that if you don't even have personal boundaries. So this forces you to look at yourself as a person, and then you can actually start to do the work of, okay, why am I having issues with boundaries? It makes you start looking at yourself. Do I have issues with personal boundaries, with setting personal boundaries, at work, personal boundaries at school, personal boundaries with my family, with my partner, with my friends, with my mentor, personal boundaries with my colleagues. So it actually makes you start to look at yourself as a person. I think nursing is a career that, it's a career that you really can't get through without, without it having an impact in you as a person. So I think that's another thing I found really interesting with the nursing practice over here. It's that, they also encourage you a lot to make sure that you have professional boundaries, and obviously, like I said, if it's something you're struggling with, then you now have to start looking at yourself personally. Oh, okay, is it that I also have issues with personal boundaries? Because if you don't have personal boundaries, how do you want to come and start setting professional boundaries, right? So you have to start small. And so I think that's really important. I found that really interesting because it's also making me look at myself. I'm noticing that I have issues with boundaries in some places in my personal life. And obviously that's going to affect my work. Like when I eventually become a nurse, that's also going to affect my practice as a nurse, right? And so that's something I'm actively working on. If you watch my last video, you know what I'm talking about, the boundaries, right? The third thing I found, really interesting is also the fact that they're also very concerned about your fitness to practice. It's something that is taken really seriously as a nurse here in Canada. Like, you have to be fit to practice. And this includes self-care, which is something, that, back home, like who? Who is caring about you? All they know is that they are paying you to work as a nurse, do your work, But then here, it's really emphasized that you make sure that you are fit to practice. And how can you make sure you're fit to practice? This includes things like self-care. And what do you do for self-care? Things like, it may be going to the gym. Going to the gym helps you with your fitness to practice. It may be, watching movies, to distress, just to reduce your cortisol levels, to distress yourself, because obviously that's going to affect the quality of care that you can give to your patients. If you're stressed as a nurse, like, you didn't have a good night's sleep, you're stressed, things are not working out, you come to work the next day, obviously your patient is going to feel that impact. Like, the quality of care you're going to give to them, you're probably going to be, let's say, very irritable. You're going to be very, they will feel it. They know that something's wrong with this person, something's wrong with this nurse, right? Or like something's wrong with her internally, something's not right somewhere. So that fitness to practice is really, really important. So they really emphasize that you take care of yourself. It's a thing. Like, you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of another person? So it's like, it's almost like leadership. That's what I'm like. I feel like nursing as a career really, not only just a career, it grows you as a person, because if now that they're saying, like, you can't practice, you can't, like, you have to take care of yourself before you're able to take care of another person. If you look at it another way, you can look at that as leadership, as self-leadership. If you're not able to, that's leadership. If you're not able to lead yourself, how are you going to, lead another person? So you have to look at yourself first. Make sure that you are fit to practice by eating healthy, going to bed early, maybe not going to bed early, but like what works for you. Make sure that you're getting your quality sleep time, right? For some people it will be 8 hours, for some people 6 hours is enough for them, for some people 5 hours is okay, and then they're good to go. You just study your body and make sure that you always come in as your best self to work, right? So that's something that I found really interesting. They do that so that you don't burn out, right? I know you, especially I think we really always hear, like with the nursing and health careers, that like one thing that is really common is burnout, because there is an under shortage of staff, and then there's like an overload of people who needs to be seen. But the thing is that this brings me to my fourth point. Actually, it's really linked. Is that the healthcare system in Canada somewhat protects the workers. Like they have you, they have your best interest at heart as well. So in as much as there is an under shortage of staff and there is an overload of people, you can't be given more than certain amount of patients to look after in in certain organization or in of certain facilities. So yes, it's that the healthcare system actually, they're trying to make it, it's not perfect, but then I've noticed that that is the system that they're trying to inculcate. That is the quality, or that is the culture. Yeah, that's the word. That's the culture they're trying to inculcate into the healthcare system, is that that the workers are also being cared for as much as as much as they care for their clients or their patients. Is that the workers are also important. So you're not going to I mean, in certain places, let's say you work in remote areas and stuff like that, you're probably going to have to do a lot more work than in urban areas and things like that. But the system tries to protect the workers as much as they can. So they would have like a maximum amount of workload you can, let's say as a new nurse or as a new graduate nurse or something, there's a maximum amount of patients you can that will be attached to you per day, things like that. Even as a doctor, there's a certain amount of patients that you can see per day. And so the healthcare system is really different. And I think these are just the things that I found really interesting, and these are the things that I found that these are the things that I found were very different compared to the nursing back home. I know the nursing, back home in Nigeria, is the nursing in Nigeria is majorly focused on like the patient, the patient, the patient. It's really never about you. And so I found it really interesting when, I started learning about nursing and the nursing practice over here, and then I'm seeing that, oh, okay, they actually really care about you as the person as well. It's not just about the patient, it's about you, it's about your fitness to practice, it's about how you take care of yourself is also important, because that's going to reflect on the quality of care that you can give. If you're not sleeping very well, you can go the next day and you're making medication errors. Right? And that's something it's going to affect the quality of care you can give. So they notice that if you don't take care of yourself as a nurse, right, if you're burnt out, you're stressed out, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not fit to practice, you're not eating healthy, right, you're malnourished, how are you going to take care of somebody else? Right? So I found that these were like the really, really interesting things, when I was comparing the nursing practice here and back home. I think this, I mean, like, I really hope that this is something that can be taken back home, or that can be inculcated back home in the healthcare system. I don't know. I really don't know if it's something I'm ever going to work on, like in the future or something. Like, I'm really not certain I'm going to, it's not sure for now if I'm going to, have anything to do with the healthcare system back home. I want to, because I feel like, what's the point of learning here and then I know that something can be done better and then I don't do it. Like, I want to, but that plan is not a fully formed plan yet. It's not fully formed, it's not fully forged. So it's still something I'm looking at. There's a lot of factors and things like that. But just in case you're watching and you're someone who, that's your plan, or like, you're looking for a way to, bridge the gap and better the healthcare system, back at home. Honestly, I would actually say I prefer the healthcare system back in Nigeria. I mean, the way it works, I prefer it to the way it works here. I really prefer it. I really can't give like any details right now because that's not what this video is for. But then I really prefer the way the system works back at home. Yeah, you don't have like long waits and all of that and things like that. It's much more efficient. It's just that here a lot of things are covered by the government. A lot of things are free. things like that. Let's say you're on insulin or something like that, you know, your healthcare plan can cover that, your insurance can cover it and things like that. But back in Nigeria, it's not something that is, you know, widely used or widely, it's not really common, right? That is not really a practice. I know that people have like health plans and health insurance and all of that, but it's not like the practice of the majority, right? So but yeah, I really like the way the system works back home, that when you go to the hospital, you're sure you're going to get treated that day, you know, things like that. So yeah, this I hope that you also found this very, very interesting, you know, just in case you're looking to study nursing, you know, and you're wondering, oh, okay, oh, what's the difference, or like, you know, what do I expect. These are just a few things that I would say I've noticed over time, you know. Okay, all right, so that brings me to the end of the 4 interesting things I told you that I have noticed with the nursing practice over here. I hope that you found that really interesting, right? So I'll see you guys in the next. I'll see you guys whatever that content is. Well, he might have to